welcome if you're new here. Welcome back if you're not. My name is Debbie Wombold, aka Minnie, and this is Minnie's Soaps and Homestead. And this is episode 2 of my Gardening in Nova Scotia series. And this may be a two-parter as well. We will see how things go. But in this episode, I want to talk to you about gardening in the conditions that we garden in here up on Homestead 2. It's previously cut property. It's forest. If you can see, all around us is forest. It's a sizable property, but we don't want to develop it too much. So we picked a 2-acre piece that we are manipulating, so to speak. So I'm going to talk to you about how we grow here, how we started. If you saw my previous video of the garden tour up here, you can get a good idea of the layout of things. So I'm going to get set up and let's get started. Alrighty, I thought I would start the video with talking about our soil. When we first got this property, it was forested, so it involved cutting some trees and clearing an area. We chose 2 acres to focus on, and we have not cleared the entire 2 acres, of course, but we chose an area to clear. We decided what we wanted to do here, and so one of the first things that we did was build a garden bed. And when we did that, we had to cut down trees. So we had to clear the stumps and the roots out of our garden area. And as you can see in front of me, the soil is not ideal for growing. Once that happened, it looked a lot similar to this in front of me. So we sourced some composted manure from a local farm. So we're very fortunate to live close to a couple of local farms where we sourced our composted manure, and we added that to our garden bed. I will say that if you're sourcing manure, what you really ideally want is composted cow manure or chicken manure. But cow manure is the best because cows digest the seeds that they eat, and those seeds don't germinate after. But if you do, of course, source cow manure, you want it to be nicely composted. Ours, we're very fortunate that the person we get it from amends it with some ash, which is very good. There are lots of rocks to deal with here in rural Nova Scotia. I always say that we live on a rock pile, and you can see by the rocks here that we certainly do. So you're going to be dealing with rocks. You're going to be dealing with poor soil. If you're getting horse manure, I do recommend it is well composted. This manure here is not composted and will be put on our beds in the fall to leave over winter. So one of the weeds that we deal with, well, let's go over the weeds that we deal with from the manure, and then we'll move on to showing you, I think the next thing we'll talk about as far as gardening in rural Nova Scotia will be fencing and deer protection. But let's talk about the manure. So, and the weeds that we deal with. So when we first put it in, of course, there were lots of weeds, and there are ongoing weeds. But the weeds that we dealt with first, right off the bat, were clover, bindweed, chickweed, grass, and I think that covers pretty much all of those weeds that we dealt with. And we still deal with chickweed, we still deal with bindweed, and we still deal with grass and some purslane, but purslane is very easy to deal with. It's also a great food source. Oh, lamb's quarters is the other one that we deal with. Um, so you are going to deal with weeds, but I highly recommend amending your soil, the soil here in rural Nova Scotia, especially in this forested, previously cut forested area. It's very poor. It's very clay laden, sand, not a lot of nutrients there. So that's what we did at first when we built our first bed. The next thing we did was build a fence. So let's go and look at our fencing. So here you can see our two main garden beds are fenced in. They're fenced in because we're growing things here that deer and rabbits love to eat. And here in rural Nova Scotia, we deal with a lot of deer and a lot of rabbits. Even in urban settings, a lot of people deal with those two main predators. So what we did, we sourced a lot of recycled things that we had laying around, things that we purchased from people who were selling on marketplace, things that we found on the side of the road. So some of those things include this fishing net. That is our door, and the door is fishing net because it's flexible and easy to manipulate when you want to go into the garden. This is not necessarily very deer resistant, let's say, because a deer could easily get through here. And I have had a rabbit just enter through this like it was nothing. We have chain link fence. Chain link fencing is amazing. That is very good. And then we have this square, what I call cattle panel fencing. That's also really good. And these two are very good for keeping rabbits and gophers and small critters like that out. So we assembled fencing. Over here we have more of the fishing net and cattle panel for this one, and some chicken wire around the base as well, because this is the one that we had the rabbit enter. So we discussed small animal protection, I'll call it, or protection from rabbits, gophers, and those types of things coming into your garden and eating your garden. And that is why these boards are here. So a rabbit could easily just squeeze through here, and has squeezed through here. Excuse famous Sophie if she's in the way. So I put this, we put these boards here. There's one on that one as well to combat that. It's not 100%. Nothing is 100% when it comes to wild animals. They will find a way into your garden if they want to. A deer could easily hop over this fence. I've seen them jump quite high. So just knowing that, you know, especially here, if you're not right next to your garden in rural Nova Scotia, and even if you are constantly next to your garden, like your house is there, you still might deal with deer. They can hop over this very easily, and I've seen them disregard electric fencing. When they want to eat your stuff, they're going to eat it if they want to. It's just a risk that we take, but these are some measures that help to combat that. Over on the other side, I did discuss that we put chicken wire around the bottom. That was because there is a large holes in a lot of the fencing over there. As I say, we use things that we just had on hand, we found, that type of thing. So putting the chicken wire certainly helped with keeping the rabbits out. One day I was in there weeding, and I glanced over to the side and I saw something brown. I thought it was Sophie, and I was about to tell Sophie to get out of the garden, and it was just a rabbit. He was just there nonchalantly hanging out with me in the garden. So that prompted the chicken wire around the bottom. It's an expensive way to mitigate that problem. There are, let's talk about what you can grow outside, or let's talk about what you grow inside the fence and what you grow outside of a fence. So if you caught my garden tour, I'll link that in the description. You'll know what we're growing inside our fence, but I'll just go over a few things. Um, sort of, I'll sort of try to easily explain what we grow inside and what we grow outside. So there are things that deer don't like to eat, but there are things that deer love to eat. So you want to choose what you're growing, of course. We make that choice by what we can store over winter and what we like to eat. So you're making your choice based on that. And then you want to understand what the deer and the predators of your garden, I'll call them predators, what they like to eat. So beans and peas, cucumbers are in the fence. Over here, now onions you probably won't have an issue with, and I haven't had an issue with my horseradish. But in here are carrots. They are a definite favorite. Anybody that hunts in Nova Scotia knows deer love carrots. So carrots, brassicas, cucumbers, those types of things. Squash, I've never had deer eat my squash, but they do on occasion eat people's squash. So consider what you're willing to risk. Outside here, we have potatoes. Potatoes are not a favorite of any animal. Another thing we have done in the past that we've dealt with were birds coming and eating our, so we used to grow a lot of carrots in here, and we had birds come in, a robin in particular, and decimate our carrot seeds. So while we're getting them started, we covered them, and that worked really well. So we put a net over the top of this garden bed, but you could also put it lower down or just cover them while they're germinating. So that's another thing. So we've talked about soil, and we've talked about predators to your garden. So let's talk about water. So water is another thing, and it is a huge issue. We dug this pond on our property to have water for our garden and water for our livestock. But as you can see, it really goes down quickly. And we are mid-July right now. And this pond, as you can see, is down multiple feet. And we have been very fortunate to get some rain. So you need to really consider a good water source. Once this goes totally dry this year, we're going to try to dig it deeper and expand it in hopes of expanding our water source. We've also talked about digging a small well or cistern. This is our chicken lean-to. So we put the metal roofing, which as you can see is recycled. We procured that from roadsides and people who were giving it away or selling. I actually don't think we've bought any. We've just kind of known people who are getting rid of metal roofing, but you could use the plastic corrugated. You could use really any type of a roofing material here, but I recommend metal or plastic, and you don't get those shingle pieces. Then we put a piece of reused gutter system on there. And when you don't have a gutter system, you can just put your buckets at underneath at drip points. So we have these rain barrels. We have found screens. Some of them are holey, but they work pretty good on top. That keeps the debris from going in there. We catch our water, and we use watering cans for watering. This far, we have not been able to set up a hose. We don't have electricity here. And if you use a hose, you need the pressure, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But a drip catchment system with barrels works really well, and that was our first water technique to get a lot more water than we can get in the pond, because we are dealing with now here in rural Nova Scotia drought conditions very early on in the season. Over here you can see our tote, water tote. So these you can buy oftentimes online if you keep an eye on Marketplace. Our local government is now offering these. So if you can get on the program to get one of these or buy one, highly recommend. And definitely cover. It keeps the water cooler, and it keeps your tote from getting algae growing on it. And so what we do now to fill this tote, the original plan was to get our fire department to do it, but they don't do that anymore here locally anyway. But if you can sometimes approach your fire department and get them filled for a low cost. But we can't do that. So what we did was take the rainwater from our barrels and pump it over here with a generator and a sub pump. And we pumped it into there and filled it up. We are mid-July, and we used half of this water tote already to water, and we still water with watering cans. And you'll find a watering can that you like the most. I like this style. The holes are big enough that you get a good flow and a good watering. I like this size hole. These ones have a much smaller hole, and as you can see, it gets clogged up if you're dipping from a pond, and it doesn't give a good watering. But if you can get the ones with a good, like a medium size hole, and I just rigged up this hose there, and we fill them up and we water here. Carrying water from the pond up here is very hard on our body. As you can see, the pond is quite a ways down there. So having your water tote near your garden is also a good idea. So I think that pretty much covers our water situation. Like I say, we are in drought conditions here very early on in the season. So right now it's mid-July, and our garden is in full swing and requiring a lot of water upkeep. So you want to consider also what you're growing, how much water it requires to grow, and how much you're willing to carry for water, how much you're willing to work to water it, and how much you can sacrifice if things get desperate for water. Last year, we got to a situation where we had no water to water our garden, and things were kept going by going to a nearby stream and filling up water jugs and bringing it up here. But things got sacrificed. So you want to think about what you're willing to work hard for and what you're willing to sacrifice when it comes to water. But I highly recommend when you're starting out to consider your water source, consider how much water you're willing to carry to get it watered, and how much you are willing to sacrifice. What do you want to grow the most? And so those are the things that you choose to work for the hardest.